Who am I now? This is a question that you might be asking yourself if you have lost a loved one or even a sense of purpose. Today, we're going to talk about the loss of identity and secondary losses and ways to rediscover yourself after you've experienced a loss. Welcome to Monday Morning Glory. I'm Jasmine,
And I'm Mary.
and we are both life coaches who have experienced devastating loss. And we wanted to take our stories and share them with you to become a resource for those of you that are walking through grief, through the loss of life and death as well. So today we're going to have this conversation about feeling just lost in who you are. So, Mary, first, I want you to start with telling us a little bit, just building a foundation for what is identity and that feeling of like, did we really lose who we are versus, I don't know, a role. So, have you
Yeah.
take it away from me?
Well, first I want to start with as what I can speak to is the loss of a spouse. And when you are married for a long time, and my husband and I were married for 46 years, you become one, And so when you lose your spouse, you lose half of yourself. It's like an amputation. And if you think about this, if you had your right arm and your right leg amputated, you got to learn how to live differently. You're going to have to learn how to use your left hand. You're going to have to learn and whether you get a prosthetic or, but you're going to have to learn how to live differently. And that is a very normal uh, experience of someone who's lost their spouse. It's a
Mm-hmm.
very normal experience for a season of time to feel just lost, you know. And I know I felt that for a long time, months. And one of the things that I encourage people to begin with is, you need to grieve that loss, that you lost part of yourself. You did actually lose part of yourself. It's like if I lost my right arm, I grieve that loss. That was part of me. I
Mm-hmm.
have to grieve that loss. Um, and at some point, then we move into, what I call self-discovery or rediscovery. And so I'll share a little bit about when I was going through this. I really did. I mean, that there's no better word, I think, for me to describe what I was feeling other than lost. It was like somebody dropped me into a jungle. I got dropped into a jungle or pushed out of a plane, whatever you want to say. It wasn't voluntary. And I got dropped into a jungle without a map. I have no idea where I am, and I don't know where I'm going. I don't know. I have no idea which way to go, what should I do? I don't know. So for a while, I just sat, I'm stuck. And I remember crying out to the Lord. And basically, my cry basically in my prayer time was like, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how. I don't know where to go. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to do this. And that one day in my prayer time, it was like a very quiet, voice in my spirit, but I knew, I recognized the Lord's voice. And what I heard him say to me is, of course you don't know how to do this. You've never been here before. So it was like, give yourself grace. Of course you don't know how, but he said, you didn't know how to be a wife either when you first got married, which is true.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, and it was months after I first got married that I was not using my maiden name and I was using my married name because I didn't feel married. I didn't, it. So it took months for me to grow into that role of a wife. And and he said, and you didn't know how to be a mother either when you first had a child, which is true, you know. You grow into that role. And that's what he, was saying. He says, being a widow is not an identity. It's just a label for this phase of your journey. It's just a label for the phase of your journey. It is not identity.
That's good. I want to ask you a question real quick right there too, Mary.
Okay, sure.
How did you feel about that label? Um,
I
you know,
hated it.
okay.
I hated it. Uh, he brought that back to me, and I don't remember if I shared this on it here before, but one of the things that the Lord, um, uh, as I'm crying out to him and praying for him, praying to him and asking for help, I heard the Lord say to me, he says, you need to stop resisting. And it was like, what am I resisting? What am I resisting? And he immediately reminded me of when after you lost a loved one, especially a spouse, there are tons of paperwork. There's tons of paperwork to fill out. And I would get to the married status and I would leave it blank because I'm not going to mark being a widow. I'm not, not going to.
Mhm.
And he was reminding me of that. He said, you need to stop resisting. It's just a label. But this is the journey you're on right now. And so he had, reminded me of all of that. And it's like, you need to surrender to this phase of your life.
Yeah.
Surrender it to me.
Yeah.
So no, I was not happy about that
Yeah.
label.
Yeah.
No.
So with the resistance, let's say if you had continued to take the resistant route, how do you think that would have changed your story?
I think I'd probably still be stuck. I'd
Mm,
probably still be stuck. Um, and I've seen it with other men and women that they immediately move into another relationship.
mm,
Uh, so to step back into that role of a wife or a husband. And a good bit of the time that doesn't work out real well. And so that's not necessarily the answer.
mhm,
So I believe, I would have just stayed stuck and uh still been trying to figure out, I don't know. I wouldn't be doing this. I
absolutely.
wouldn't
Sure.
be doing a lot of what I was doing because I'm just, because I was just stuck.
Yeah, you
And
would have held up
so,
your process.
yes.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest with you, I'm still not real crazy about saying, yes, I'm a widow, you know.
Mhm.
Um, but I can say it now without that, regurgitation
Yeah.
that shows up,
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
but uh, and but it's really because of my relationship with the Lord. It was like you need to surrender, and so that's one of my prayers every day is I surrender my future. I surrender my life. I surrender my future. I surrender everything to you. I choose to trust you. The one of the things that actually gives me comfort, it may not for somebody else, but for me, is like, God, you knew this was going to happen. You knew it was coming. And so, and he still has plans for me. If I'm still here, obviously he's still got plans for me.
Mhm. Yeah.
So, uh, basically what he was telling me is to give myself grace. You need to grieve the loss. Yes, you need to accept. Yes, it's sad. And there's a lot of things that like I said, in we got what we call secondary losses. It's like a lot of things that my husband, took care of, all these years that now are on my shoulders. Like I mentioned to you before we got started on this today, it's like I changed the first for the filter on the furnace today for the first time by myself. My son has come over and done it for me before, but this is the first time I actually did it myself. So this is something I never even thought about before because my husband always handled all that stuff.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of secondary losses. I think about him every week when I have to take the garbage out because that was always his job.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of secondary losses that you have to take on and move forward. But at the same time, uh, I realized somebody had asked me this question, and this is what moved me toward the rediscovery piece or beginning to rediscover is well, first of all, my husband and I've been a life coach even before he passed away,
Mhm.
which was, I know a gifting that the Lord has in me. So that hasn't changed, but that came out of something. And maybe in a different podcast, I'll share that story of, how that all came about. But that also came about from a loss and a huge grief, but not a death. It was a death of a dream, but not a death of a person. But somebody had asked me, well, what did you do? Because I started the grief share on Saturdays because the weekends were the hardest, because my husband and I usually on the weekends, that's when we would do stuff. And
Hmm.
so now he's not there. So the weekends were hard. And so somebody asked me, well, what did you do on the weekends before you met your husband? And it's like, I met my husband 50 years ago. It's like, "Ah, I don't remember,
Yeah.
I met him when I was a freshman in college. So it was like, because the weekends were when we spent time together. Because during the week he was working and both of us were in classes. And so I had to really think back to, um, and you and really start asking the Lord, okay, what do you want me to know about that? And one of the things that I started doing was, and this was just for me, I actually started listening to 70s music again, which would have been the music that we would have listened to when we were in college. And uh, looking back and dreaming about, some of the things that we used to do and that I would do. And so just kind of rediscovering, what do I like? Because many times when you're married, you compromise and it's like you start doing things that, it's not my cup of tea, but because he likes it, this is what we do, and vice versa. So I really started looking into, what is it that I enjoy doing? What do I like doing?
Hmm.
And so it's a matter of rediscovery. I'm still the same person. I still have the same giftings, but I can't even explain how to say it, but there's a difference there. And one of the probably the biggest thing, and you can probably say the same thing, Jasmine, when you have something like this happen in your life so suddenly, your priorities change.
Very quickly.
Very quickly. And the things that used to, just irritate the snot out of you aren't that big of a deal anymore. You learn to keep short accounts. You learn to, not stress the little things. And so it really does change your priority and change your outlook in life
Hmm.
to be much more and learn how to just enjoy every day, trying to enjoy every day and be grateful for every day. But it takes a while to get to that place.
Hmm. Hmm.
You gradually move to that place. So that's one of the things I want to emphasize is you need to give yourself grace to process through the grief before oh, now I got to figure out who I am. No, you need to grieve the loss. And I'm still, it's been 3 years and I still grieve losses. I still, it triggers me sometimes, that, if he was here, I wouldn't have to be doing this, that type of thing. But, but at the same time, I've learned to change it too. But I'm grateful that I can do it,
Yeah.
that I'm able to do it, or that I have a son that lives close by that and has been a lifesaver for me, who helps me out if I need it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you find all the things to be grateful for.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you've hit on a lot of things that could probably like deserve individual attention
Mhm.
to be unpacked. And I know that we're wrapping up some of the thoughts here. But the idea of we've already had the one loss of our loved one, but then now we're having to deal with how we've lost ourselves
Mhm.
in the process. And so while the true us is still there, there's a lot of moving parts. Like you said, it's priority shift, values kind of, take a change. And it doesn't necessarily mean that these are bad changes. Some of them are probably even for the better.
Mhm.
But what I heard you say, just two things I'll touch on very briefly is I thought that it was interesting when it comes to widowhood or widowerhood is that somebody, depending on how you define moving forward and being stuck, somebody can remarry out of the need to fulfill a role and
Mhm.
call that moving forward when really they don't like the discomfort of
Mhm.
having to work through the rediscovery of self.
Right.
um and so, I mean, I'm not saying I know the answer to that. I'm just saying I can see that as being a tension that somebody would have to maybe work through.
Yes.
But then also secondary, the second thing to touch on, and I think I might share some of this
Mhm.
when we talk about losing a child, is the acceptance, right? Of so if I'm going to struggle with this new phase of life and be resistant towards it, I can really hold up my progress. Or I think you use the word surrender, but I'm going to also use the word accept. Working into that acceptance is a fight sometimes
Mhm.
too, isn't it? Fighting to act. And I think acceptance comes in layers. I
Yes.
don't think it comes all at once, and none of the process of grief, none of the process of rediscovery is linear. I think, you come around that tree stump on one level and then you come around to that tree stump again on another level. And one year after the other, you accept different parts of
Yes.
the story and of yourself and how it's impacted you.
Mhm. It's like going around a mountain. You've heard that sign, the line before. It's like, "Hey, I'm going around the mountain, same mountain over and over and over." And it's like the Lord corrected me the one time and he said, when you, if you've ever been to Colorado or someplace, when you go up a mountain, you go straight up? No, you go around the mountain. But each time you go around at a different level.
You're spiraling up.
So just because you're going around the same mountain, you're going around at a different level.
Yes.
So, and that's, like, and like you talked on, I mentioned back there about, uh, some people, they move on. Like I said, they find another relationship right away. The most common thing that I've heard from a lot of people is, I just can't be alone. I just
Right.
can't be alone. Well, that can be, um, uh, sometimes being alone is very uncomfortable. I can tell you that from firsthand experience. But that's where you get to really know yourself.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
can really get to know God in a different level.
Yes, yes. We can go on this subject. So if you
Uh-huh.
guys want to hear more on this, definitely shoot us a message. Mary, I want you to tie this up in a pretty bow for us with a word of encouragement.
Well, one of the things that I want you to know, that after a loss, a significant loss, whether it is the loss of a loved one, the loss of a dream, the loss of, something, you will never be the same. You will never be the same again. You will begin to hopefully grow into a new self that's born out of this grieving process. And like I said, the grief can be from the loss of a loved one, it could be the loss of a dream, it can be but out of that grieving as you grieve, there's going to be metamorphosis that's going to go on, and you're going to grow into a new self that is closer to who God created you to be.
Yes, very good. Yes, we are leveling up. That's kind of my little takeaway for
Mhm.
today. We're going around the mountain, but we are leveling up. So
Mhm.
thank you guys for joining us today. We encourage you to reach out to us. You can contact me at jasminemcglure.com. I have a contact us page there, and you can reach out to Mary as well.
You can reach me at empoweredlivinglc@gmail.com, or my website is empoweredlivinglifecoaching.net.
Yep, you can find that information in the description. And we just thank you for watching and shoot us a message. Let us know what other topics you would like for us to
Mhm.
touch on. Thank you.